Picking it out.
I grew up in Thomaston until I was 10 years old, and then moved. My father uh, was transferred with his job down to South Georgia, down to Tifton.
Oh yeah, yeah. I played
So
Tipton.
really,
Yeah,
most people went through it. It's on the interstate heading to Florida.
yeah.
Um, so Georgia Championship Wrestling, it discovered me in 1970 when it was still on WQXI channel 11 in Atlanta, and it was I think an 11:30 or 11 o'clock on a Friday night was the time slot, and I watched that and just got hooked walking through the living room. I think my grandfather, my father's father, and my grandparents were visiting, and they were up watching it. My grandfather, massive wrestling fan, they were watching it, and I stumbled through, long past my bedtime to go get, a drink or whatever, and just was hooked immediately. 1970. So I
Wow.
watched Georgia Championship on WQXI channel 11 in Atlanta. Then it moved over to WTCG channel 17 in Atlanta, and then the great split between ABC Sports. It's ABC Sports, not the network ABC, but it was just called ABC Sports when Ray Gunkel passed in 1972, and his widow, Ann Gunkel, started All South Sports. And so, long story, but Ted Turner, who owned WTCG, gave Ann Gunkel another hour. She had from 7 until 8. Georgia Championship had from 6 until 7 on Saturday nights. That's where the 2 hours on Saturday nights for WCW came from. It used to be two different shows. So I got to see Georgia Championship, and then I got to see All South Sports, which, that was for a couple of years. Moved to Tifton, so we still got Channel 17, still got those shows. Then get this. Also, Georgia Championship would do, nobody remembers this, would do a live show on WRBL Channel 3 out of Columbus every Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock. It was a live wrestling
Wow.
show in an arena, and it was just for the Columbus market.
Oh wow.
So they would go tape the TCG show at the arena where we did it in WCW, that same room, and then they would drive to Columbus to do a live TV at 4 o'clock on WRBL, and then drive to wherever the house show was that Saturday night, usually Marietta. There was also a Georgia Championship show that did the exact same thing, except it wasn't live, and it was on Channel 41 out of Macon. They even had like a Macon heavyweight champion,
Uh-huh.
for Georgia Championship. So I got Georgia Championship, All South Sports, Georgia Championship from Columbus, Georgia Championship from Macon. Also got Mid Atlantic from a television station in Savannah that was on our cable system. So I got to see David Crockett and Bob Caudle and, a young Ric Flair and a young Ricky Steamboat and a young Greg Valentine and Rufus R. Jones and all those guys from the Mid Atlantic territory. Then I got Championship Wrestling from Florida from Channel 6, WCTV in Tallahassee. So I got Florida stuff. I also got Continental, Gulf Coast from Channel
Wow.
4 in Dothan, Alabama. So I grew up on all of that. 3 different Georgia championships, All South, Mid Atlantic, Florida, Gulf Coast or Continental or Southeast, whatever name it was going by at the time. So I got it was heaven for a wrestling fan to be exposed to that much television. I've told Cornette that story before, and the first thing he said, of course, where are the tapes? Like, I have no idea. I didn't know tapes.
Yeah.
No such animal. I'm like 10 years old. But every weekend, it was, I mean, whatever that turns into, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of wrestling every weekend.
Wow.
That was awesome. And that's why you become a fan, because, you could follow the guys territory to territory, and you could see angles developing that worked in Florida. Then they would
Right.
run the same angle in Georgia. Hey, that worked in Florida. Let's bring it to Georgia, because most fans weren't following it that closely. It was brand new to them.
Yeah.
And do the same thing with Alabama and, with different talent. And sometimes the talent and they're heels in one place, babyface in another place. And feuding in Florida and tag teaming in Georgia. I just adored that stuff.